Come, whoever you are, with your hurts, your imperfections, your places that feel raw and exposed. Come, whoever you are, with your strength the world shudders to hold, with your wild imaginings of a better world, with your hopes that it seems no one wants to hear. We will make a place for you. We will build a home together. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come to this community that has been sharing worship in our community life for the past, I think I've got the number right, 132 years? No? Grace is nodding. I got it. Come to this community that has been sharing worship for over a century together. Come, let us worship and celebrate together.
Good morning, good morning. It's great to see y'all. Good morning to you. Good morning, it says here. All of you, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. I'm Smiley, and I will be your worship associate for today. We are a welcoming congregation, and we're always working on how to be better and welcome and care for one another even more. And if this is your first time here, then I'm glad you've come. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. As we begin, we want to acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huichin, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. And we understand that we continue to benefit from the seizure and the occupation of this land. We acknowledge and embrace our responsibility to take restorative action, and we affirm that this is deeply felt, and we commit our congregation to be in right relationship with the indigenous communities, aligning in solidarity, supporting indigenous projects, and caring properly for the land. Let us kindle our chalice flame with these words. These are the 4 candles of resilience. We also pause to remind ourselves of some of the foundations of resilience. With Reverend Michelle, we light a candle of courage, a candle of acts of service, a candle of fellowship, and a candle of hope. May we find and cultivate these foundations of resilience in ourselves and in one another. And now, please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our opening song. It's number 6 in the gray hymnal, and the words will be on the screen. Join me in saying our covenant up on the screen. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another. Please be seated.
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having want to use it, but love is better if you don't refuse it. It's a treasure and you'll never lose it unless you lock up your door. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. So let's go dancing till the break of day, and if there's a piper, we can pay. For love is something if you give it away, you end up having more.
That song is one of the favorites at the Faithful Fools Street Ministry, and who knows, coins and pennies and love might just show up again this month in the Time for All Ages. How's that for a teaser? All right, let's have our folks who are young in body and young at heart, or young at heart, to come on forward for our Time for All Ages. Oh, we have animals joining us today. We have a big snake. We have a dog. Katie, it's okay. I like that one because it's stuffed. That one's safe. All right, more animals? Excellent. So I have a story to tell you all today about a very special mountain. Anybody here ever seen a mountain? Did y'all see the snow on the mountains here this past week? Well, there's something else on this mountain. Long ago and far away, or maybe just yesterday and just around the somewhere halfway in between, there was a town that sat quiet and content, tucked into the shadow of a mountain. And carved on the side of that mountain in letters so big and tall nobody could miss it were the words, "The answer is no." No one knew where the words came from or why they were there. They had just always been. But oh my goodness, how the people who lived in that town cuddled into the mountain and were glad to have the words there. Because whenever the townspeople had a question they couldn't answer, all they had to do was look up, and Answer Mountain would help them. Making decisions was very simple, and life went on smoothly and easily in the town until one day. Now, on that particular day, Ma Custis was just to make dinner for the family, and she couldn't decide what to make. She couldn't decide whether to make stew or steak or pasta or potatoes or dumplings or donuts or just some pie, so she went out into the yard. "Should I make liver for dinner tonight?" And the mountain said, "No." "All right, I knew that really. Nobody's crazy about liver, but should I make steak tonight?" And the mountain said, "Uh-oh." "Should I make chicken?" The mountain said the answer is. "Should I make tacos or tofu, baked beans or broccoli, pork chops or popcorn?" And the mountain said nothing except the answer is. Ma Custis asked more questions until the sun went down and then came back up the next day. All the mountain ever said is, the answer is. Now, because she couldn't get any kind of an answer, her family went hungry with no dinner because she couldn't decide what to make. Finally, she gave up the next day and made liver. And everybody hated it. "Why is the answer always no?" she says. "Why can't you just say yes once in a while?" Ma turned and stomped away to ring the town bell. It's the bell that you ring when there's something really important to talk about. From the oldest man with the longest beards to the youngest kids who still needed carrying, no one would miss a town meeting, so they came running. And they all listened carefully as she told her story. "Seems to me," she says, "we've got a problem. The mountain just isn't helping like it should. Seems to me it'd be nice if it would say yes once in a while." The townsfolk knew she had a point, but they didn't much like the idea of changing something that had been the same for so long. But they thought, and they thought, and they talked, and they talked, and they thought, and they thought, and they talked, and they talked, and finally nodded solemnly. The mountain would have to be recarved. Mason Sharp, how's that for a name for a stone carver? Mason Sharp nodded, and he scratched his nose, adjusted his cap, looked up at the mountain and said, "You know, looks to me I could do the carving if that's all right with you." It was. So he spent the next 2 weeks on the side of the mountain, chiseling and chipping and carving away and coming down only when it got too dark and going back up there when the sun came up. And when he was done, the mountain said something different. The mountain said, "The answer is yes." He rang the bell to call the town together, and they all came running. Ma Custis, who had started this, came right up to the front of the crowd. She figured she ought to be the first person to ask the question, since she had discovered the old problem. So she stepped up, looked at the mountain, and asked the question that had started the whole thing. "Should I make liver for dinner tonight?" The mountain said, "The answer is," much to her family's dismay. But Pa told me he'd never forgive me if I served liver again, and all my kids threatened to hide in the barn for a week. "Should I really serve liver?" The mountain said. The townspeople began to grumble. Well, I can't," she said. I just can't serve liver again. I promised I wouldn't. "Are you telling me I should break my promise?" And the mountain said, "Yes." The grumbling got louder. She turned to the townspeople and says, "This just isn't right. It can't be right. What are we going to do?" Once again, they put on their thinking caps. Are there ideas in here? Do y'all have some ideas on what to do about this mountain? Finally, one of the kids piped up. "Why does it have to be just one answer? Can't we have more?" The townspeople gasped. No one had ever thought of such a thing before. Well, they mumbled and grumbled and talked and listened and discussed and talked. Probably had some committees thrown in. Finally, they decided the mountain ought to say, "The answer is sometimes yes and sometimes no and sometimes wait to see and sometimes I just don't know." How's that for an answer? Mason the stone carver, who'd been listening to all of this, cleared his throat and said, "I think I can do it. I don't mind, not really, even if I did just finish carving the first change. But, I can't work on it every day because this is going to take a lot longer. How about if I work and I can, and we'll hang up some sort of a sign on the mountain so that folks know what's going on?" And so it was. The funny thing was, it worked for a little while. He'd go up and work some, and then he'd not. And soon he got tired of climbing the mountain every day, and everyone else got tired of waiting. So they just started answering all their own questions for themselves. The townspeople realized different questions usually had different answers, and sometimes the same question had more than one answer, and that there were many more answers they had ever imagined, and that was fine with them. And for a while, maybe the mountain had helped him, but now what the mountain simply said is the answer is under construction. There are a lot of things under construction, aren't there? You can see our theme for this month and for the stewardship campaign is building a new way, because so many things are under construction. Answers are under construction, and every moment and every day is also under construction as we are building. Y'all like the letters up there? Isn't that beautiful? You kids notice it? Yeah. Be sure you look close, because there might be a question coming to you later about them, so take a good close look before you leave. All right, you can't see them? And I think there are too many cords. I'm not allowed to call them up there to take a closer look. All right, well, why don't you keep your thinking caps on and your answer caps on, and let's sing them out to their classes. I hope you remember that Magic Penny song. So let's sing the kids to their classes with Magic Penny.
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it close and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. For Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more.
That was fun. I hope we get to do that one again, Brian, and again and again. All right, as we're giving away love and feeling the love coming to us and surrounding us, I invite you into this space of love. I invite you to reach out from yourself, reminding yourself of the cares and the concerns and the joys you are carrying, and remember those around you are also carrying cares and joys. I invite us into a time of silence. You may close your eyes if you wish, as we are reminded of this life spirits of those around us. Now, keeping your eyes closed if you wish, let us sit in a place of questions and answers, mostly of questions. Many of us have questions that are under construction and answers that are under construction. I invite you to bring into your mind or listen into your heart for the answers that the questions you have been grappling with, the answers you have been seeking that may yet be out of reach and not yet built. I invite you to bring into your mind one of those questions that you have been holding. Now into our space or into the comments section, if you are viewing this online, I invite you to speak or type that question into our community. What are some of the questions that you are carrying? Oftentimes we may carry questions that may not even be yet fully formed, or that may be dear and close to our heart. I hope for inspiration, wisdom, or even just compassion as you go forward, holding on to your questions, bringing them here into our community or carrying them through your life. Now please remain seated. And let's sing together our meditative song, number 318 in the gray hymnal, if you'd like the music for it. We would be one. We would be one as we hold these questions. The words will be on screen.
Our hymn of love to pledge ourselves
That song has my absolute favorite tenor line ever. I love it. I want to read a story titled Just Regular Folks. It's by Jane Zepka. In the 1930s, of course, times were tough. During that period, members of our church were accustomed to pledging either 25 cents a week, 50 cents a week, or $1 a week. In the 1929-30 church year, all the church members fulfilled their pledges of $13 for the year, or $26, or $52. But as the Depression continued, our ledger books began to show tiny numbers at the bottom of each page. 5 cents, $2, $12, and then a little S. 5 cents short of the pledge. $12 short. Just what one would, of course, expect during the Depression. But picture this. Picture more members appearing at the bottom of the ledger. $4. Picture more numbers, rather, appearing at the bottom of the ledger. $4. 80 cents. $7. 30 cents. And after these numbers, the tiny letter O. $4 O over the pledge. 80 cents over. There's no evidence in our records, Ms. Zepka says, of a special appeal from the Board of Trustees, no traces of public discussion, only the quiet generosity of the people. For every pledge that had to fall short, one of many generous people overpaid to compensate. The history of our churches tells us Gandhi was never a member. Mother Teresa never belonged either. King Midas never showed up, nor did Bill Gates, for that matter. Just regular folks like us. They dedicated their babies, they worshiped, they reached out to do their part in the world. They tended to one another. They kept the place going. They tried to live their best lives. In those old days, Samuel Eliot, a big shot from the Unitarian headquarters, stood outside our church to dedicate a new building. And he said, quote, "My friends, let us not forget that the church of the Spirit must be forever building. You are linking your personal religion to the spiritual life of this whole community. And in this high endeavor, I bid you Godspeed." Unquote.
UUCB is a pretty cool place with some pretty cool things going on, is it not? So during my time here, I've talked with many folks about what they think UUCB does well, and I've heard some great answers. So I decided to ask you all today, what are your favorite things about UUCB? And some of you answered me. That's what the cards were. So let me share these. What folks said their favorite things about UUCB were: the people, friendly faces, good music, the atmosphere, chalice circles, making friends in a covenantal place, OWL, which is Our Whole Lives, our sexuality education program, the people, the music program, the music family, men's fellowship, people in community, the chalice circles, the view, the constant care and concern, all my church friends, meeting new people, the joyful music, the welcoming, the rubber trees in the atrium, the food, community and friendships. I like how I get to be who I am here, and also the food and the music. The people, the spirit of community and generosity, justice workings, and last with a smiley face, the choir. It's a lot of stuff. And we don't force anyone to be here either. Okay, some of the kids might disagree with that. Or some of the parents might disagree if their kids drag them here. That happens too. But we are a voluntary organization. Our history as voluntary associations goes back to when the Congregationalists were starting things up here after leaving England, where they were fleeing the mandates of the Church of England and instead seeking to create churches of their own design. Ironically, many of the congregational churches in the Puritans established became involuntary in the sense that they were associated with the geographic territory and all of the local residents were required to pay taxes that supported the local parish. Over time, though, changes were brought through the court system that shifted the financial support to be entirely voluntary choices. Although, doesn't that sound like a much more efficient pledge drive? Just locally tax it. So why do we each choose to get involved in voluntary associations? According to the great UU theologian James Luther Adams, they are both a means for acting on one's freedom and also a means for exercising one's moral responsibility as citizens. These associations, he says, act as intermediaries between the individual and the government at large to provide a means and an appropriate scale in which an individual can act. At their best, voluntary associations are a means for empowerment. That's pretty cool. A means for empowerment is why we're a community. They're a place where we can join our influence with others going in a particular direction. This is both empowering and power expanding for the individual, since a group can leverage power to a greater degree than ordinary individuals can do by themselves. It is in tapping into these meanings that congregations enable individuals to act and not just to receive. This church thing, is actually a bit more complicated than it may seem to be. It's not just about receiving, although that can seem primary much of the time. We do live in a culture that leans towards a consumer-oriented way of being that does spill over into our congregations, potentially to a great degree. In some ways, this might be our perspective that we have when we come into a congregation, and that's totally fine, of looking for something for ourselves and thinking about the things that we need. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you develop the relationship, it's not the only reason you're there. The fourth UU principle, and for those of you who are new, there are 7 UU principles generally agreed upon. There's an 8th that there's a lot of grassroots work to talk about. And if you are new here and want to see, they're actually in the front of the gray hymnal. So you'll have them right now within an arm's reach. The 4th of those principles talks about our individual spiritual searches of affirming the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. How many of y'all like that one? Oh, I do. But it gets balanced with the 3rd principle. The 3rd principle is the goal of encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, the individual and then the collective encouragement. Being a spiritual seeker is a fundamental part of our congregations and of our faith. This concept of being a seeker is fundamental to it's fundamental to what I would call individualistic theology, which focuses on the religious journey of each individual and the truths and experiences that we each find. It is a patently individual definition, though, if taken by itself. Taken by itself, it's talking about a consumer religion. So thankfully, though, that individual spiritual growth is not where our principles stop. That before the fourth principle, in fact, the individual comes after we remind ourselves of the communal with the third principle. And they talk about this UU faith of ours and the encouragement to spiritual growth of others, which I will call shared seekership. And it's not just seeking, I'm naming it as, although I think what I have seekers up there. So it's not just seekers and seeking, but I call it seekership. And it's not just individual seekership, but shared seekership, where seekers are in relationship with one another and, in an ideal world, accountable to one another. Shared seekership means that one's divine path or spiritual path is worked out in relationship with others who are also working out their spiritual paths in community with one another. This perspective is an important shift away from focusing solely on the individual and their one path to be in the context of others and communities. And it helps us truly embrace our idea of the little t truth, because it says there are many truths that each of us may find. As Universalist Clarence Skinner reminds us, religion is a spiritual interpretation of the whole of life. Religion is a spiritual interpretation of the whole of life. Shared seekership in the context of a religious tradition is what the congregation is. This kind of seeking and encouragement for our seeking and our seekership is a precious part of our faith for many here. It's one of the things that drew me to our faith and has kept me here, and I'm guessing that's true for many folks in the room. But it's not the only thing I put up here, because it's only part of the picture. There is more to being a member than just seekership, although it's an important part, because we do want everyone here to be able to keep growing spiritually. One of the challenges that congregations face is that we have a bit of at least a double identity. We are a spiritual community, a church, and we are also a nonprofit organization, largely volunteer-run, which also raises its own funds. And that means that our members each have multiple identities, too. Seekers, volunteers, leaders, welcomers, ambassadors, crafters, lunch makers, all of these sorts of things. The identity I want to hold up today is that you are also stakeholders. You are stakeholders in this place. A concept of being a stakeholder is required to make a shift from just being something nice when it suits you to truly being part of what's going on, having ownership, having a stake in the mission and future of this place. This is more than just being asked to pledge and having the opportunity to vote in congregational meetings, although those are crucial and fundamental parts. The fact remains that the mandated quorum in many congregation meetings is a mere 10% of membership. And often, and I'm talking denomination-wide, participation barely clears that number. Although I will say, UUCB clears it by more than other congregations I've seen, but not by a whole lot, so don't get too comfortable. I attended a denominational district gathering where the group was one congregation short of 10%, and folks had to get on their phones to start calling around to get one more person to show up so they could even do basic business, like vote on a budget. However, we do have many true stakeholders, members who not only make decisions like they have a stake in the future of the institution, but who are willing to take on the cost of making those decisions happen themselves, whether that cost is financial or energy or creativity or leadership, all of these things. This is ownership, not only in the sense of the rights, but also taking on the full responsibilities and truly owning those responsibilities. Shared seekership and being stakeholders. These are how you are active participants in a community and have an ever-deepening sense of your part in the community. And as we know, it isn't always an easy thing to do. Has anybody been happy with 100% of the stuff that happened here? I better not see any hands, because I'm going to accuse you of not thinking fully. Being a community and being a congregation takes work. It takes real work. This is a fact that often surprises new folks who come in just joining as seekers, craving a community of shared seekers, and instead discover there's so much more. Activist and educator Bell Hooks notes, she says this is just a beautiful little nugget of a quote, "Sisterhood is not a gift, but a task." Sisterhood is not a gift, but a task. Likewise, community is not a gift. It is also a gift. It's not just a gift, but it is a task. Or perhaps, yes, not only a gift, because community can be a gift, a life-saving gift, but it also takes the work. Tremendous work that doesn't seem to yield ground-shaking, world-changing changes and effects. Sometimes it's just the little things. That's the work it takes. But an ocean of little things. UU theologian Sharon Welch shares something that helps to keep things in perspective. So it's a slightly longer quote, so stick with me because this is juicy. Where does this leave us in our work for justice and our attempts to build and sustain community? We are not ushering in a new age. We are not part of a grand cultural revolution. We are not fighting the war to end all wars. We are quite simply, like all generations before us and all the generations that will come after, learning to walk. We have grand missions, missions of the world as we dream it might be, missions based on our connections with the divine and that which is beyond us call us to chase, missions that attempt to bend the arc of the universe. But in reality, we are engaging in the hard work that make these happen not by huge steps, but instead, step by step, tiny step by tiny step, day by day and week by week. It's the work that we need to keep going and doing. And there are reasons we do it. There are reasons. One is our mission and our commitment to our mission and the difference it can make. But we also keep doing it for some of the enduring things that permeate our community, things that bind us together, things that we leave, like the Magic Penny song reminds us, that spill all over the floor, the things that bind us like love. Quaker theologian Parker Palmer, if you haven't read his work, it's amazing. Parker Palmer, remember that. Quaker theologian Parker Palmer reminds us, community reminds us we are called to love, for community is a product of love in action and not simple self-interest. Love in action. The best example of this may be a chapter in the Christian New Testament that may very well be the most frequently misused chapter in the entire Bible. Anybody know what it is? 1 Corinthians 13. It is frequently read at many weddings, even the occasional memorial service. People get glassy-eyed when they hear it. And no doubt, verses, it's about love, verses from it can even be found on Hallmark greeting cards. However, that has nothing to do with the original context for the chapter. Yes, it is about love, but not romantic love or even familial love. This letter from Paul was sent to the congregation in Corinth when they were having some fairly significant conflict in the congregation. This was Paul's direct message to them on how to weather the conflict and how to be together. Paul's answer, their solution? Love. Love is what binds the members of a church together. Love is the thing that keeps us going. And yet, there is another key element that I can't end without talking about that distinguishes congregations from other organizations, that is essential for congregations. It's an element that many a parish minister tries to reach every Sunday. It is the foundation for many of our missions and our covenants with one another. And it is so desperately needed year by year as we go along. That thing, anyone know? Hope. Hope binds us, and hope propels us forward and keeps us going. What is it that keeps us coming back each week? Coming back to engage in work that is sometimes not even fulfilling? What keeps us coming back and committing and recommitting to our missions and our work, aside from everything on these index cards? Love and hope. Sharon Welch has one of my favorite statements about hope in congregations. Here's what she says. What may we hope? We may hope for resilience and company. We have hope for endurance, for companionship, for being able to respect and celebrate life in the company of friends and colleagues. We may also hope for a matrix for responding to challenges, not a means of resolving them once and for all. Finally, she says, what must we do? Here, the postmodern ethos is clear, offering an image of power and chaos, of vitality and humor, as we learn to live fully and act creatively in the midst of a world we can never control and only partially understand. It is not only hope for that fuels a congregation and its members, but also hope in a general sense. A retired Catholic monk who was a member of a UU congregation I served defined hope this way. And I have his full permission to keep using these words. He defined it. Hope is trust in the future that does not ignore risks and dangers and does not make specific demands. For it affirms the future in a way that transcends particular expectations. How's that for a definition of hope? It doesn't need to be tied to specific ends or specific expectations, or else it might be shattered. Instead, hope is the driving force that keeps us moving towards the future. So what makes a church a church? What makes a congregation a congregation? Congregations are a group of people gathered together for a purpose, a place where one can feel a sense of belonging. They are voluntary associations with voluntary membership and participation. Congregations have missions connected with their spiritual mandates and responsibilities. Congregations are made up of people engaging not only in shared seekership, but also the responsibility of being stakeholders. And last, congregations are bound together by love and by hope. This is what binds you and keeps you together. And this is what we give to be able to keep going, whether it's giving our time, leadership, commitments, or our resources. UUCB has great stuff going on for sure. And I want you to be sure to remember it as you are moving forward, building the future that you dream about. And to talk about some of how UUCB is special, we'll have our stewardship reflection from the fabulous Katie Lipka. Who was somewhere. Where's Katie? Okay, We will no doubt get to hear her words. We got her fabulous voice today. We'll get her words at a later point in time. Smiley? Oh, there she is. You were hiding.
Yes, I hide frequently. Actually, when I came here, I was terrified. I wasn't a churchgoer when I was young, and I was just thrust up here and expected to lead songs, and you guys are just so welcoming. This is not in my speech, by the way, but you were so welcoming. I hadn't sung solos for 10 years because I'd been raising my kids, and you just gave me so much confidence, and the way you welcome the youth and children's choir, whether I have 1 kid or 7 kids. I remember when Vivian last year was my only kid. She was in kindergarten, and she had never sung in this room because it had been COVID. So all of her singing with YCC had been with Zoom. So she shows up for Earth Day and our annual This Pretty Planet song, and it's just her. And she gets up for you and sings a solo and twirls around in her Earth costume, revolving like the planet in the universe, and you loved it. And she felt loved. I remember when Naomi sang the 7 Principles song. This is a while back. I think she was 7 or 8 and sang it in a congregational meeting. You're the most supportive group of people. That I've had the pleasure to know. No, yay you. Stewardship honored me to speak about what UUCB means to me. From fellowship with people who share my values, which is harder to find than you'd think, to social activism, to good works in our community, to intellectual stimulation. There are so many opportunities to engage with the world here, but I gotta shout out the music department, because from Brian and Katya, every week, these professional musicians giving us a professional concert every week. And the music they choose, from Baroque to 21st century, every year in between that, you don't know what you're gonna hear, and it's gonna be played beautifully and musically. We're so lucky. And that music, that organ or luminescence, our chorus, that sound is gonna envelop you in this room. From your toe to the hairs on your head, you are just surrounded in harmony, in rich harmony, and these beautiful, comforting tones. Sometimes they're comforting, sometimes they're exciting, sometimes they're joyful, sometimes they're calming, sometimes they're sorrowful. If you're not so lucky to be in the room and you're watching from home, you have the benefit of our excellent audio and live stream volunteers and staff. Lately, we get Charlie Dowden and Andrew Brown back there often. And I told Charlie he must be working some magic, because when I listen back to recordings at home of when I sing solos, I sound pretty good. So he told me he's still working on compression or some other technical mumbo jumbo, but every week I think he's perfecting it just a little more to make us sound even better for us in the room and the people at home. A little more about YCC. Those kids get here every week, and we have so much fun downstairs in the meditation room. And when we get up here to the chancel, sometimes we have a minute for a sound check. Sometimes we have 20 minutes. Sometimes we have lots of mics. Sometimes the mics are being used for other things. They have to figure that out. They have to be flexible and have a good attitude and bring their energy and stand in front of a room full of people. And this is a pretty big room. I mean, remember, they're this high. They're small. This is a big room and a lot of people. And they are learning flexibility. They're learning resilience. And they couldn't do that without your love that you give them back when you're listening to them. So I'm so proud of them, and I'm so grateful for you guys. Lonnie Mosley recently wrote an email promoting an organ and flute concert talking about the connection between music and health and music and healing, and she wrote, "I choose music as my gift to my body." And of course, she has Cordell at home to sing for her, but she still comes and listens to music here. So what I want to say is, please send Stewardship some love in the form of your magic pennies. Help Stewardship achieve their goals to keep our weekly concerts going strong. Let's build a new world and serenade it with music.
We're at the time of the service where we invite you to make an offering. And in this way, each of us has the opportunity to contribute to keeping our community dynamic and resilient. We're continuing to conduct the offering without passing the plate. Instead, you can either give electronically by scanning the QR code on the back of your badge or your name tag, whichever you want to call it. You can put cash or a check donation into the donation envelope that you'll see at the back of the pew in front of you. Write your name on it for tax purposes and mark offering plate or pledge, and then put it into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium as you leave the service. Each week, half of the offering plate is shared with a nonprofit Good Neighbor organization that is recommended to us by our Social Justice Committee. We're grateful that you've continued to practice generosity with UUCB and our good neighbors through these difficult years. Your offering of any value is always received with gratitude. Our good neighbor for this month is Urban Tilth. And here to tell us about Urban Tilth is Isaac Resendez. He's the Fund Development Manager for Urban Tilth. Isaac, if you will.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. This is my first time here, so this is very beautiful. Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Isaac Resendez. I'm the Fund Development Associate at Urban Tilth, and I'm just going to share a little bit about our mission and also highlight a project that I would really want to promote. Urban Tilth hires, inspires, and trains local residents to cultivate agriculture, feed our community, and restore a relationship to the land and build a more sustainable and food system that contributes to a just and healthy environment. We're based in North Richmond, and we set out to create green spaces for our community to gather, eat, forage, and build strong relationships with one another, to transform our community from one of scarcity to one of abundance. We help our neighbors grow their own food and teach our local residents about the relationship between food, health, poverty, and justice. As we enter our 18th year, Urban Tilth has a number of programs and projects that provide material support to our community and our youth. So I strongly recommend you visit our website at urbantilth.org. One project that I would really love to highlight is the work that we're doing in Verde Partnership Garden. Verde Elementary School is one of our partner schools, a K-8 school in North Richmond with half an acre of land where we grow fresh food, teach reading comprehension and STEM courses, host cooking demonstrations, and much more. We're currently hosting a fundraiser to improve the garden's infrastructure to transform it into a beautiful and inspiring space for our youth to flourish in. now and for the foreseeable future. Thank you, everybody, for sharing the space with me and letting me promote.
Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
It has been fabulous being together today. And the fun is not done yet. This is our Stewardship Kickoff Sunday. So we hope that, this is a campaign with an all-church Building a New Way extravaganza today. Okay, that's a big word, but take a look in the social hall and you might agree. After the service today, children and children at heart can present, so hopefully that means all of us, can participate in hands-on building activity with Lego bricks and other building stuff. They're all on the tables in the social hall. And if you look around, you can learn about some of UUCB's many church groups, and there's a delicious luncheon to go with it. So hope that you can come over into the social hall for a fabulous all-church luncheon and learning more about the things that we have and can do here at UUCB. And while you're at it, please stop by the Stewardship Committee table to pick up your letter. We'll be sending out stewardship letters this week, but only to those who haven't picked up their letter. So if you pick up your letter, you can get it today. The rest will be in the mail, so no worries. They'll be going to everyone. And starting this Thursday, first, the board has called a congregational meeting for after the service on March 26th for voting on the proposed resolution about the Freestone property in Sonoma County. I have to start with that, but we have lots to talk about before we get to that. So that is March 26th. So there will be Q&A and info sessions this Thursday evening on Zoom, and then the next 2 Sundays after the worship service here in the sanctuary, and then a number of other Zoom gatherings for dialogue and talking about your thoughts about the resolution and about Freestone, just to be able to get ready to have this vote. You are stakeholders here. And that means getting up to speed with things and participating in the dialogue and coming to the meeting on the 26th ready to be able to vote on this important piece of UUCB. There will be information going out with the schedule, and please take a look at the information that we had circulated ahead of the October meeting. There will be some updates and a new summary about guidance from Sonoma County. Please take a look and come to the Q&A sessions, and let's talk and get ready for the vote. And last, but certainly not least, do you remember how many of y'all said music on those cards? That was what was favorite. So today, 3 p.m. here in the sanctuary, our Barry Zuckerman will have a recital. Beautiful music. It's a fundraiser for UUCB's general fund as well. So I hope you can come and enjoy this fabulous gift of music. But hey, let's finish with some music too. What do y'all think? Please rise in body or in spirit. We'll be singing the song that is the Pledge Drive theme, Building a New Way. It's in the Teal hymnal, number 1017. The words are on screen.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, getting stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free from hate, greed, and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We are feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
What new ways are we building in our lives, in our communities, here in this congregation? What new ways of thinking are we building? What new ways of doing? May we ever have the wisdom to know what to hold on to and cherish, and what to add as we move into an ever new future together. Blessed be.